Snuggle Stories presents The Best Nest, a tale of roosting rivalry. Written and illustrated by J.C. Perry. In a tree, in a field near an old stone wall, there lived two birds named Peter and Paul. When they had finished building their nests, Paul looked at Peter's and thought, "Whose is best?" Paul boasted, "I've used nice warm feathers in mine." Peter replied, "I've used strong sticks from a vine." This bothered Paul, so while Peter was away, Paul made his nest stronger with mud and clay. When Peter got home, Paul boasted, "My nest is the best." He flapped his wings proudly and puffed out his chest. Peter felt jealous, so all through the night, he worked on his nest until it was light. When Paul woke up early, his beak hit the floor. There stood a veranda with a roof made of straw. Peter sat proudly and sipped his lemonade. "Morning, Paul," he tweeted. "Do you like what I've made?" Paul was so furious that he went berserk. He lifted his tool bag and set straight to work. In a flurry of feathers, he transformed his nest, and when he was finished, there stood a fortress. It had a drawbridge, turrets, and cannons too. Peter said, "Pah! Is that all you can do? Mine will be better, and when I am done, you'll see that my nest is so much more fun." Peter built a hot tub, home cinema, and games room. And outside a Ferris wheel, merry-go-round, and log flume. Paul was dumbfounded, but before he could speak, a flash of lightning silenced his beak. Rain, then a rumble, a storm was on its way. The great tree they lived in started to sway. Peter and Paul lay low in their nests. They'd wait until morning to judge whose was best. But before morning came, the wind grew stronger. The nests they built could withstand it no longer. They were too big and heavy. They fell to the ground in a broken, soggy, twig-tangled mound. The birds woke the next day near a roaring fire. A neighborly owl asked them, "Are you feeling drier?" "What happened to us?" Paul questioned the owl. "And why do I find myself wrapped in a towel?" "Your nests were so broken, there was no repair. You lay in the rain. I couldn't leave you there. So I picked you both up and I took you with me. This is where I live, in the trunk of this tree." She made them a drink and a quick bite to eat, and they tweeted some songs while they warmed up their feet. And the owl thought the birds didn't have a lot, but this didn't bother the owl, not one jot. Well, this got them thinking. A big fancy nest might not be the true key to real happiness. A few days went by, and in glorious weather, Peter and Paul built a new home together. They had moved to a hole further down the tree and had painted a welcome sign for all to see. Then inside the hollow, they carved rows of beds and fashioned some blankets out of old threads. The owl poked her head in as she passed. "Why are there so many beds?" she asked. "You'll find out quite soon," came the answer from Paul, and he hung another welcome sign on the back wall. Later on that day, the rain started to pour, and wind whipped around their tree once more. A mole poked his head out of his flooded hole, and out of the wet crawled a mouse and a vole. They were joined by others who'd all lost a home. They huddled together, soaked to the bone. They saw a light glowing through the cold pouring rain and found themselves drawn there like moths to a flame. There stood a tree with a welcome sign outside, and two birds who greeted them, wings open wide. "We're Peter and Paul," the two birds said. "Please help yourself to food and a bed." The owl was really proud of Peter and Paul. She cheered, "Now you do have the best nest of all." The end.
Like this video, give a thumbs up and subscribe.
See you next week!